Hi, Malcolm. I really like this paragraph because I can tell exactly when you're switching from one example to the next. So there's a couple places where I think that you can make some grammatical changes, and then a couple places where I think you can make the content of the paragraph even better. So starting out with a really easy correction, remember to put your name at the top of the paper, just so that I know whose it is. The other thing, let's start out with this first sentence. Being a bully does not help your social status. It's a great first sentence. I in a formal paper, and because this is a formal analytical paragraph, don't use your. Instead, you could say something like, does not help a kid's social status or a student's social status, or take your pick, but try not to say you or I in a formal paper. Now, the one exception to that rule is at the very end, where you use an example from your own life. The other thing is, because this paragraph is based so much on an article, I would give credit to that article right at the beginning of this paper. So you could say something like, according to a study done by Anderson Cooper of CNN, being a bully does not help a kid's social status, something like that. So we know right away that we're referring to a specific article or a specific study. Then you say, one example is that other kids don't like bullies because if they are around them, they might be bullied. I just noticed a little comma missing. Okay, so every time you say something about one example or another example, I want you to write the word of. So one example of, or one example that kids don't like bullies is, what's the evidence? Or one example from the study says blank. But if you say one example is, we don't, one example of what? One example of bullying not helping social status, one example of, you take your pick, and it could be anything in the world. So you want your word choice to be really, really specific. Does that make sense? So let's continue on with that sentence. Is that other kids don't like bullies because if they are around them, comma, they might get bullied. Makes total sense. I have this little, I'd like to do a little bit of evidence from the article. So if you could say, what evidence did you have that other kids don't like bullies? Maybe you could even use one of the percentages that there. Another example of what is kids, and just capitalize that K, so fix that K. Another example of bullying not helping social status is kids switch from being bullies to not being them because they bully someone, then they get bullied by someone like the person that bullied them or their friends. I know what you're saying because I read the article, but this sentence is confusing because of all the thems and theys, and we don't necessarily know who you're talking about each time you say them or they or their. So instead, let's make the sentence, chop it into a couple smaller sentences and be very specific about who you're talking about each time. Again, you might want to refer to the article. I think that might help make your sentence a little bit more specific and clear. I love this final concluding example because you're clearly thinking of something very specific. You're not talking in general terms about a bully. So, a final concluding example of bullying not helping a person's social status is when I was bullied, period. That person was avoided by my friends, by everyone at school, by the kids at camp, whatever, for a while. Check the spelling on a while, that's not quite right. And was not more popular at all. I know you're trying to protect this person's privacy, but if you could say something about, a final concluding example is when I was bullied at summer camp, the person who bullied me became very unpopular This goes to show that being a bully, right? You see how it's a little bit more specific without still allowing that person to retain their privacy. Nice job. I'm especially impressed with this example at the end. Good work.